This video is part of a project undertaken by the Victorian Association for Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. The project centred around the use of the teaching and learning cycle to support learners' English development. In this video, we're looking at how the teaching and learning cycle was implemented in an undergraduate teacher education program. At Monash University, the teaching staff decided to try something new with their first-year undergraduates. Over the term, they would not just teach their students about literacy pedagogy, they would engage them in actually experiencing it in practice. Across the weeks, they implemented stages of the teaching and learning cycle with the students. They developed students' knowledge of the field. They scaffolded their reading about the field. They investigated the target genre, in this case, children's picture books. And they supported students' writing on the topic, until the students were able to complete the task independently. Their learning was facilitated by extended oral interaction. The students' assessment task was to collaboratively compose a children's picture book, drawing on what they were learning during the teaching and learning cycle and reflecting on the process. In addition, they had to design a curriculum unit using the teaching and learning cycle to teach a primary class about writing narratives. The introduction to the field or topic was complex, as there were two fields that the students were learning about: literacy pedagogy and the narrative genre. Barbara began with pedagogy, introducing the students to the teaching and learning cycle.
And these two stages of the cycle are pretty interrelated. You do a lot of supported reading while you're building the field. All the time, students are writing drafts. And then we learn about the genre. We move through, after a lot of work here on building knowledge of the field, we move to learning about the genre. We look at the text structure and the stages and phases in the text. And we look at the language features and think about why the author's chosen particular language structures that they have and how they've crafted their stories.
Barbara explains that the stages of the cycle are fluid, not strictly sequential.
And sometimes when you're going around the cycle, you can find that there are maybe gaps and you need to go back and build the field up a bit more, so you need to keep on going backwards and forwards around the cycle a bit.
Before going further, the students were asked to develop a first rough draft of a children's story. They did this collaboratively, sharing their ideas through supportive talk, an important element throughout the teaching and learning cycle.
Because people passing by as well.
Is it in a corner?
The corner shouldn't
Shouldn't be anyone like passing by. Instead of these.
You can pass by a corner.
Maybe other insects.
Insects are in the store.
Do you share or yourself?
Yeah, nice.
So I'm in
should add
the junior level ones. So
Should we get something here?
Yeah, maybe add something. Yeah, adjective.
your own.
Each time they learnt something new about the narrative genre, they would return to their evolving draft and incorporate their growing understandings.
So all the time we're asking students to revise texts, to revisit their texts, to build a richer language in the narrative text, and also to think about the characters, think about the setting, think about change over time, what's the theme behind the story, and these may change as you revisit the text and revise your text.
The supported reading phase of the cycle involved assisting students to read academic articles on literacy pedagogy. And together, they read and discussed lots of examples of children's literature, analysing the features of picture books that they could include in their own texts. They also enjoyed listening to read-alouds, where the lecturers modelled reading with expression, as in this reading of The Coat by Julie Hunt.
So the coat. Let's first of all think about what the cover tells us. Okay, maybe you can think about that in terms of your own books that you're creating as well. How important the cover is. The coat stood in a paddock at the end of a row of strawberries. It was buttoned up tight and stuffed full of straw, and it was angry. What a waste of me, it yelled to the sun and the sky and the crows and the paddock. What an unbelievable waste.
The students are now guided to explore the narrative genre, analysing how it's structured, the language choices made by the author, and the images created by the illustrator. Returning to the coat, they discuss how it goes through stages of orientation, complication, and resolution, and they return to their drafts to flesh out how their story would unfold. They then considered the theme or message of the coat and returned to their drafts to decide what might be the main theme of their story.
What was the message that the book told you?
Development
Development. Okay. Development in what way?
of the man's personality and his confidence. As such, he kind of fit into. The coat started with confidence and he had no confidence, but as they came together, they kind of completed each other, and he grew into the confidence as a character.
I want you to think about the themes too, the theme of your text, and then how your characters maybe think and feel and how they might look as it relates to the theme of your story.
Yeah, that's good. Which one do you want to do for Riley?
So could I ask what the theme is of your story?
Character development, self-confidence.
Good. So it's quite similar to the coat in terms of not having any confidence, and by the end of the text, feeling
How are you going?
good about yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So will you put that up the top? Yeah. Because your theme will influence how your characters look and think and behave.
They also discussed the characters in their story, what roles they would play, what attributes they might have, how they would interact, and how they might change over time. To support them, they were provided with graphic organisers such as character maps.
Oh, so how is language used to develop the characters in your story? So we're going to do an activity now where you can think about the physical attributes of your characters and how you're making your characters come alive to the reader, how you develop personality in your characters. What do they do? How do they behave? Their interactions with each other. What are they thinking and feeling? And sometimes the illustrations help to do this as well as the text. And how do we show change in our characters across the story? So what language and image resources are we using? Now we want you to think about the language that you're going to use and the images that you might use to make your characters come alive, and how they might show emotion, feeling, how they might change across time.
Confidence at the end.
But she's very insecure in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's optimistic.
We haven't covered that.
What does she look like? She's an introverted character. So basically the plot is she's moving from schools to different schools.
Ow, shut it down.
She has low self-esteem.
So how are you making the dog's character come alive? The way it feels and the way it acts and behaves.
I think from the script and from the pictures,
will you use words like confident and bright and bubbly in your story, or will you portray that in another way?
Yeah, just describe it, like, not explicitly, but like from his gestures, and it adds.
A bit like a coach
Yeah.
in some way, changes, transforms, so the dog develops confidence as the story progresses. Is that what happens?
Okay, that's good. So with your map, your character map, how many other characters have you got?
We only have two.
Oh, okay, all right. So you thought about how they're going to relate to each other? Yeah. Okay, the personalities for each one? Yeah. Okay.
Think about it, because it will change, won't it? So what would you like to put here for your trait or emotion?
Confidence. Okay, yeah. All right. That will be an interesting change, won't it?
Yeah.
Dreadlocks to being bald. That's great.
In the end, she's sort of like
At this stage, the students participated in a joint construction activity, innovating on the text that they had read previously, the Code.
Okay, so today we're going to look particularly at supported writing and how to go about engaging students in shared writing and particularly the joint construction of a text. So it's getting ideas from the students and forming them into some sort of coherent written task. And for us, that's a narrative genre. It's about us building a text together. And today we're going to innovate on the orientation of this text. And also it's about the teacher modelling. So modelling how to write a text. So we're incorporating insights about learning about the genre. So when we're talking about the orientation, an orientation is part of a narrative genre. And then we're going to ask you to go and reflect on your own text.
In their innovation, the students were now going to change the characters. Instead of the coat, they decided on a pair of tap shoes. This meant that they would need to think about how this would change other aspects of the story while retaining the same theme.
Alright, so now we're going to introduce the character. There's a pair of them. So we're going to talk now about the shoes. So if we have a look at the coat, it was buttoned up tight and stuffed full of straw, and it was angry. So within that sentence, there's a description of what it physically looks like. There's also something else. What else is in that sentence to help us understand that character a bit better?
It's emotions.
It's emotions, because it was angry. Okay, could I get you to have a think with your partner or in your small group? Could you write me a sentence like this one, like the one at the coat? Tell me what they look like, the shoes, and how they were feeling. Using the form of this sentence.
So our sentence was, the shoes were once polished but have lost their shine. They were forgotten and lonely.
Okay, so they were polished, lost their shine, and feeling lonely. Thank you. Yeah, so it's partly
They were all vintage, covered in dust, and they were hopeless and lonely.
hopeless and lonely. Okay, so we've got a nice theme going on. Feeling dejected, lost, hopeless and lonely. All right, so let's put together our introduction to the character. Okay, so let's go and have a think about those words that you've chosen. Laced up tight. So tell me why you chose those words.
Well, yeah, kind of brings across the fact that they were unused, but it was like a fine pair of shoes as well.
So let's keep going. They were laced up tight.
Untouched, with a fine layer of dust.
Right.
Abandoned, dejected. Both the same, I felt we just had the two words.
Abandoned
Dejected.
and dejected, or abandoned, comma, dejected. What would you like?
I feel like it's got more impact if you have the comma as opposed to.
Okay. Okay, let's have a look. The tap shoes. The tap shoes lay on a tired old stand in a dark corner of a shoe shop. They were laced up tight, covered in a fine layer of dust, abandoned, dejected. What a waste of me, they cried to the window and the wall and the old chandelier. What an unbelievable waste. So, are you happy with that? Right, so that's how you do a drawing instruction. I think it's really, really accessible to all students. Great to work with a partner and a small group. And good to share and contribute ideas. Thanks for your contributions today. What do you think?
Drawing on what they had learnt about the narrative genre and its language features, the students now worked on their final draft and continued to reflect on the experience. Because they now had a deep understanding of the genre and the field, and a shared goal for writing collaboratively, their talk was purposeful and lively, interacting in a safe space where they could feel confident to take risks. When the students had produced their final draft, they shared them online with their lecturers.
So our story is called Finding the Way. Probably the most prominent feature of it is the fact that it's bilingual. We have English and we have Vietnamese. There are two characters in it who are English and Vietnamese as well, respectively. So the book is built around them having a conversation with each other, trying to help each other out. But because they don't speak the same language, they need to find other ways how to communicate. Just one more level to go. I'm nearly there. All I have to do is beat this. What? The battery has run out. Oh, Mum, you're never going to believe what happened. Huh? Where has she gone?
Cậu bé đằng kia hình như bị lạc. Mình sẽ nói với bố mẹ. Có lẽ chúng ta có thể giúp cậu ấy. Cậu đang tìm ai đúng không? Chồng cậu có vẻ như bị lạc.
I don't understand a single word she is saying. Maybe she can help me out. I'm looking for my mum. I'm not sure where she went.
Ồ, cậu ấy không biết nói tiếng Việt. Cậu ấy chỉ vào mẹ mình. Có lẽ cậu ấy đang tìm gia đình.
We tried to write it in a way that you would still understand what was going on. So if you were in the position of one of those characters, you'd understand that, oh, they pointed to my mum, so they're looking for mum, or I pointed to a drink, so hopefully she knows that I'm looking for something around the drink aisle. We tried to write it in that way.
And the illustrations really helped as well with gaining understanding of the story and what you were trying to do and the whole message behind the story.